Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio. Me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And, we're going through a lot of things right now, especially in the United States. Well, actually not just in the U.S., it's a global thing. A lot of different things are causing it. We've got conflicts, we've got wars, we've got elections in different countries. Especially in the U.S. here, we've got a presidential election coming up here in a couple of months, and it's causing a lot of discord. And I wanted to have this week's guest on to talk through. He's written a book called Deep Trade-Offs, and we're going to get into some of that. But I want to talk about how to sort of restore some of the balance and respect in today's world. That there's so much divisiveness, it seems, and I don't want to seem gloom and doom and all that kind of stuff, but you know where the pockets are, where there is that. So our guest this week is Mr. Mike Hassell. He is educated formally as an engineer at Georgia Tech, a humanist at Vanderbilt, Master of Liberal Arts and Sciences, and the executive side as a Harvard MBA. He's a Renaissance man. His book, again, Deep Trade-Offs, reflects on the fruits from 50 years of curiosity in various pursuits in science, history, psychology, and philosophy. Mike co-founded and managed knowledge products and audio publisher of 140 plus titles on the great ideas of history. And before the show started, he mentioned I'm sure there's a long list of them, but some of the great people that he's worked with that. During the next 20 years as a senior executive in startups and early stage businesses, Mike's main hobby was reading widely in nonfiction. I can definitely relate to that. Accumulating yet more ideas and resources to fold into his book, Deep Trade-Offs. Mike, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
So delighted to be here. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, appreciate it. And I know it's going to be a fantastic show. I'm not trying to put pressure on you, Mike, but I know from our conversation before we even got started, and when we booked you as a guest, it's like, man, this is going to be a good one. I'm really looking forward to it. And I know you've had a long career, but tell us, sort of about your entrepreneurial journey, your career journey, if you would.
It starts with being born into a family of engineers, but most of them were not educated. They were farm mechanics, auto mechanics, things like that. Mm-hmm. My uncle went back to University of Tennessee, and he ended up on the IBM group that invented the barcode scanners. And a big influence on me as a kid, because he could fix everything that my mother saved up for and for his visits. And I just wanted to be Bill Steele. So I went to Georgia Tech. I'm just naturally curious. That's probably the word to best describe me. And so I was interested in a lot more than engineering. And after a couple of years of engineering school, I felt like I was being trained for a profession rather than being educated more broadly. I was interested in philosophy and humanities, literally didn't know what humanities are. So I did some research on the role of those things in a technical education because I wasn't getting it. So I was the only student in the country doing that. That's really what got me into Harvard. And I had a deferred admission and I got a chance to go to Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati. Got my big corporate background there, met my fiance and wife. We went off to Boston. So I didn't like big companies. I'm too independent for that. And after business school, I wanted to get into venture-backed startups. So I've had a career in early stage formation and incubation and growth stage businesses. The first main one that I did was called Knowledge Products. I co-founded it here in Nashville, and it was an audio publishing venture on the great ideas of history. Political thought, economics, science, religion, moral problems of our age was one of them we did. And at about mid-career, age 40, I had this aha moment because we were doing a presentation on moral problems. And I realized what we were talking about is not a problem as I understand a problem to be as an engineer. There's not a right answer and a wrong answer. There's no formula. There's no algorithm that's going to get me to an answer that is undisputed. But rather, there's several right answers that are right in different regards, in different ways, in different proportions. And this ultimately led me to the idea of deep trade-offs. So from age 40 to about 65, I thought about this. I collected examples of it from my reading. And now that idea has blossomed more generally into this point of view that few things are absolutely right or wrong. They're right in certain ways, in certain situations, certain senses. and that black and white thinking about right and wrong leads us down bad paths, including bad relationships. And so Deep Trade-Offs is about that. And the subtitle is about balance and respect because it particularly applies to our cultural problem of the day. But it's a more general way of thinking that I think is very productive.
So I have to ask, you've been involved with a lot of different types of companies, businesses, and things like that. You mentioned startups and incubation and things like that. Aside from knowledge products, what was like your favorite or coolest sort of idea or whatever that you worked on?
Well, we started and ran an incubator for about 15 years after knowledge products came to an end. Also, I ran a division of Gibson musical instruments. I was trained musically as a kid on piano,
Okay.
but also was a drummer in the band. And so I ran the drum company there. It wasn't fun in lots of ways that had to do with the particulars of the management team I worked with, but it really was fun to be in that performing arts industry and, meet artists and, there's a business behind it. And I did it for about a year and then moved on to become the entrepreneur in residence at Vanderbilt. So that and the incubation company really is like seeing a parade of the future. And that's really where my heart lies is, helping create stuff that maybe makes things better. I think that's probably the universal motivation for good entrepreneurs. Sometimes they just want to do it to make money, but more generally, they do it to accomplish something that is meaningful.
Yeah. Well, based on all your experience, I got to ask this. So again, with your broad experience and all the different things you've been involved with, well, first of all, Mike, you got to leave some higher education for the rest of us. I mean, Georgia Tech engineering, Vanderbilt, Harvard. I mean, come on. Like,
I'm just curious. I just kept going.
Your academic resume couldn't be more impressive. Holy crap.
Well, thank you.
But what's like maybe one or two characteristics that you've seen that is absolutely a necessity for like a founder of a business or a startup or something like that you over the years and all the different businesses you've been involved with, and you had some P&G experience as well. Like, what's something out there that, again, maybe it's just one or maybe it's two that you're like, man, if you don't have this one or two, you're probably not going to be successful, or it's something to accelerate your success?
The one thing that comes to mind is something I learned at Procter & Gamble before I ever went to business school, and that is know your customer. Understand who your customer is. And when we started the business, this was our first question. Who is your customer? Sometimes they didn't know. They would tell us who the user is, okay? But the user's not paying you. So for a television station, your customer is not the viewer, it's the person who's buying your advertising.
Right.
A friend of ours is CEO of Popeyes, and she told me very clearly, and she had been at P&G, told me very clearly one time, my customer is not the people eating chicken, it's the franchisor. They're the ones that are buying my services, and his customer, her customer is the chicken eater.
Yeah.
So as business models get more and more sophisticated, and a lot of people, healthcare, very few people pay their own medical bills, or very little of it. Right. I live in Nashville. It's a healthcare town, and it's not very consumer oriented because people paying the bills are the government first and insurance, the payer, they call them, of various kinds, the insurance companies second. So understanding who your customer is, and I don't mean generally, kind of some cloud-like understanding of a category of everybody needs my product, right? That's one error that people make. Everybody is nobody because you can't target everybody. But I mean their names.
Yeah.
Who is the first person you're going to call, and what have they told you about what they need and what they don't want, and do they trust you? We used to run into customers all the time that wouldn't tell us what they wanted because they didn't trust us to be honest about whether we could meet it. They expected us to just use their words and exploit them and lie to them.
Yeah. Well, look, Mike, we got to hit a break here. I appreciate that. We're going to come back and continue talking with Mike about his book, Deep Trade-Offs.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit GetPulseTools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show again, talking this week with Mr. Mike Hassell. You can find out more, and we'll put this in the show notes as well at his website, deeptradeoffs.com, which has to do with his book, Deep Trade-Offs, of course. So, Mike, your experience, we talked about a lot about your experience, all the different things you've done, your absolutely amazing and impeccable academic experience at the different places you've been. Tell us a little bit about what led you to, after all these years, and you said it sounds like for about 20, 25 years, you were thinking about writing this book. How did that percolate and finally say, I'm going to do it now?
So I had this aha experience at age 40. And, at the time I was thinking of dualisms or dichotomies or dyads, terms to kind of describe this balance, this competing nature of things that I was seeing that is other than finding a right answer as an engineer has to do. So I was reading widely about it, and I kept noticing more of these. I would hear a sermon about justice and mercy. Well, if you're accountable, you're not forgiving. If you're going to make somebody accountable and find justice, you're going to punish them, or you're going to do something other than be graceful and drop it, right? Mm-hmm. And I kept finding more and more of these. I now found about 30, and I wrote about 3 of them in the first book, plus a kind of summary of what to do about it. But I have 27 or so more. And they're things like, focus and sensitivity. I'm very focused mentally. It's a habit, and I don't hear some people when they're talking to me because I'm so focused in on something. Neither is right? They both are needed, but it's an observable phenomenon. We think we all want to be impartial, but we also value loyalty. Mm-hmm. Right. So I basically did an inventory of all the values I could find, went on the internet, found 2 or 3 of them, combined them, deduplicated them. There's about 300 values there. And the idea I had was that every one of these has an alternative. So I went through that exercise, and for every value that was listed, I can identify something that competes with it and maybe undermines it in some situation.
Interesting. Yeah. So and I love the one you brought up because that is so true. And, it's obvious when you say it, but I hadn't really thought about it before, Mike, is that idea of, again, accountability versus sort of, the word empathy.
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Yeah. And so, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes that's a struggle for me. I mean, not only, in a lot of different types of relationships, as a leader, as a manager of people and holding people accountable, but also having that forgiveness aspect to it. As a parent, I can relate to that as a parent as well. What are, in your research, what are some things that you've noticed specifically with that, kind of give and take that throw things off, or maybe that could help create a little more balance for people?
First of all, you've said an important thing, that these things are subconscious. We're doing these balancing acts all the time, but we're not quite aware of them. We're not thinking about them. And there are 3 that I talk about in my book. The first chapter is on peace and striving. We all say we want peace, right? But we're working hard, we're striving, and it's conflicted. It's full of conflict. When you start a new business, you step on toes, and there's a balancing act that we're having to do about when are we going to rest and relent and submit, and when are we going to insist and resist, I think is a common word in our culture right now. When are we going to be willful and run over anybody that gets in our way because we want things to be a certain way, we want to accomplish something in our business. we're making those choices all the time, but we're not doing them consciously. And so part of what deep trade-offs is about is bringing these tensions to your attention, to our attention.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I was even while you're talking, I was thinking about, in my corporate days when I had, several teams and everything. And a lot of the times the thought process I'm going through, it's probably a ton of the things, well, not probably, it's definitely a lot of the things you're talking about, Mike, is sort of those trade-offs on how do I handle this particular situation, whether it was something that was really good or really bad, in that not only does it have to be, that what we mentioned earlier about, accountability. Okay, this was your project and it failed. And so how do we do that? And how much, for lack of a better term, harshness is involved with that? How much empathy do I show? Like, oh, okay, well, I understand why maybe it fell short. And then the other part for me, because I had, several teams across different locations and everything, I was always very conscious of almost like a lawyer term of precedent. Have I had a situation like this, I want to make sure I'm treating people fair. Did I have a situation like this with another team member, maybe in another city? And how did we handle that? I want to make sure that I'm handling it in the same way for this particular person. Is it analogous enough that it would be, that's kind of the same thing? And so it's fascinating to me now that we're talking through this a little bit more is, yeah, there's so many of those trade-offs to make. And as you mentioned, you're doing so many of them, I'm sure, subconsciously, but also, at least for me, as I look back and reflect back, some of it was conscious of really sitting in my office and contemplating, like, okay, I get some recommendations for people on the management team, and then I'm kind of thinking about it as a leader, like, how should we handle this? And if we hadn't had a situation like this before, what's the right way to set that precedent? So in the future, this is going to be how we're going to handle it.
What I hear in your description is searching for a principle or a rule or something to follow. And the tension I would raise here is the difference, the tension between rules and conscience. Precedent is a form of a rule, right? Mm-hmm. And big companies tend to have rules prolifically. Some of them push them down on people because the senior people have learned all these things. They're going to make a rule to embed their wisdom, right? A lot of successful companies don't do that. They push discretion and conscience at the customer level. If you're in front of a customer and something needs to happen, like Nordstrom is good at this and they're famous for it. They empower those people to make the right decision in the moment based on their perspective. They may make a mistake, and you got to allow that to happen. But you don't wait for 3 weeks for something to get appealed up the line to what the right rule is. So speaking generally, rules and conscience is a future chapter that I'm going to be writing about. And it's very complicated because we've got federal rules, we've got state rules, we've got so many layers of government, and that doesn't begin to cover other kind of rules in businesses and in our own moral codes, et cetera. And you can't realize them all. I can't even be aware of all the rules. There's so many.
Yeah. And I wanted to hire people, and I got this line from Jamie Dimon, who's the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan, is I want to hire people who will ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yes.
Leaders at least, right? Because
yes.
If you're going to come to me with everything and I have to tell you what to do, I really don't need you. That's right. I'll make the decisions on my own, right? I need someone to make decisions. And guess what? You're going to make some bad decisions now and again, or maybe something that I don't agree with. That's okay. It's okay, right? But let's talk through it, as that happens.
I used to tell groups in the companies that I started that, look, if we all agree, then everyone except one person is redundant. I need you to disagree and tell me. We may still disagree, and we're going to work out a solution. We'll decide how we decide, but we need the input. And it kind of relates to another point I think is worth making in a business context, that committees are lousy at initiating things. They're good at reviewing and reflecting and incorporating lots of perspectives, but generally it's the individual who sees a new way of doing something that makes a change. Yeah,
I love it. Again, talking with Mike Hassell this week. Find out more about his book, Deep Trade-Offs, at deeptradeoffs.com. Come back after the break. We'll continue talking with Mike and how do we restore some of this balance and respect in today's world.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit GetPulseTools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show, talking with Mr. Mike Hassell this week. Fascinating conversation here about all these different things, and it really got my mind spinning, Mike, of, all these trade-offs. I mean, again, there's so many different examples of this. I'm preaching to the choir on this, I know, but that being said, especially, we had talked before the show even started. I don't want to go down the political alleyway or whatever, but especially here in the U.S., we got a presidential, election coming up here shortly. So much divide, so much divisiveness, especially politically in the U.S., that's causing some of this imbalance in lack of respect in a lot of cases. What are some ways that we can really start to look for, whether it's your neighbor politics or family member politics, or just relationships, or maybe if you're a leader of a company, dealing with employees and trying to balance some of those things out and create that environment and that culture within your company, if you're an owner, of in today's world, of how to sort of incorporate some of these things into that.
A lot of what you read about civility and solving this problem is about process. It's about treating people nicely, about asking questions, about discovering, and that's all important. It's really necessary, but to me, it doesn't get to the foundation of the problem, which is to understand why people are motivated to think the way they do. And so I think Deep Trade-Offs accomplishes that by looking into these foundational beliefs that people have. And one of the conclusions is that there's nothing that's absolutely right or wrong. Things are right or wrong at different degrees, as we touched on at the beginning. But let me take you through a few ways I have of thinking about this. First of all, conflict is not a problem. It's not something that is a mistake, shouldn't have happened. It's inevitable. It's a feature of free people. It's a feature of any people, actually, but free people especially, and we thrive on it, and we should use it constructively rather than try to prevent it. In an election, 40% of people are never completely wrong about anything, in my opinion. They have some reason for thinking that way. I tell the story of the naked emperor in my book because a lot of adults are very tempted to pretend to believe something they don't, because the consequences of not believing it are unfortunate. And so that's what the naked emperor is about. All the adults are pretending that the emperor has clothes on because they don't want to insult him and lose their livelihood. Solzhenitsyn talks about this in the Soviet Union. The lies are based on self-protection, but it's the innocent who really see the truth. And I would say relationships are more important than agreement. To follow from this, don't expect full agreement. Look to relationships first. They usually precede agreement because people are loved into change, not shoved into it. We have a lot of subconscious motives that urge us to fight back against people that are challenging our belief structure. That's called motivated reasoning and confirmation bias. We're not even aware of it. It's built in. Some people think it has an evolutionary purpose. But making ourselves aware of the subconscious urges that are compelling us to do things is part of the solution.
And so, Mike, let me touch on that real quick.
Yeah.
How much do you think that social media plays into that, specifically that aspect of it, in that you hear about the algorithms and everything, and you get into an echo chamber of, if you're out on social media and you're liking posts or commenting on posts that are, let's say on the political side, that are, it doesn't have to be politics, but you're liking one particular thing. I love black dogs. And so I'm liking a bunch of things about black dogs. I comment, oh my gosh, what a cute dog, etc. And so the algorithm feeds me more black dogs. And so then it becomes this echo chamber of, I just see black dogs. And so now, oh my gosh, black dogs are the end all be all. And brown dogs, oh my gosh, brown dogs are terrible, right? How much do you think that that plays into what you just mentioned?
Well, a lot, because their goals are to keep you on the platform, whatever it takes, whether it
Yep.
is to outrage you or motivate you somehow to just stay there. That's how they make money. It's like theaters and films, butts and seats is the way they make money. And so media is the same way. It shouts conflict because it gets your attention. Nice stories, we say we like them, but we don't pay attention because they don't scare us and they don't threaten us. And so it's, I think, built into human nature that we prioritize threats. And so media has learned to do that, to manipulate that.
Yeah.
I think, I say in the book that biases and prejudices are natural things that our brains use to do their jobs. We think they're things that we shouldn't have, that we should comb that out of our thinking and our believing. And they're like habits. They're inevitable. If you really talk to the neuroscientists, as I think you said your daughter is studying, they will tell us that we have to have these shortcuts because we can't think of everything and reason through everything. So we have habits and bias and prejudices. Anybody claims they don't have prejudice is just not thinking, because we prejudge things all the time. We have to. So motivation and motivated reasoning and confirmation biases are the kind of things that come out of that. So in the end, I think the most helpful thing is to realize that right and wrong is not a binary choice, is that things are right in different ways, in different settings, in different degrees. And if we accept that we are thinking in bets, really, about what's the probability of something working for us well or poorly in the future, then we have a path open to respect other people. They have just judged the priorities and the balance is a little bit different than us. We can make a relationship with them based on that. I don't agree with my wife on everything. We know in our tastes we disagree. Everybody knows that. I think the point is to extend that to moral issues and political issues, to see that there is not a right answer that science is going to find for us. There's a cluster of answers that we have to embrace and balance.
Yeah. And I love what you said earlier too about, and I found this to be effective for myself, and even just in interpersonal relationships, of the questioning, asking questions, to try to seek to understand instead of seeking to be understood.
Yes. Yeah. Question rather than tell. One short word to avoid is telling. There's a lot of telling going on in our culture. And, back to social media, I didn't really say this. Social media is a medium, and it dehumanizes us in a way. We will say things to people when we're mediated that way that we would never say to somebody to face.
Right.
It's just indecent in some ways. And the trolling, the things that people are willing to say, it really shocks me in how it brings out such a nasty aspect of human nature.
Yeah,
so
for
I
sure.
avoid it.
Yeah, it's interesting because my wife and I were just having this conversation. I can't remember who it was about, some celebrity or famous person, and someone who's just has quickly risen to fame recently. And I said, how long until someone digs up a tweet from 2015 that they were ranting about something and said something that was inappropriate or off color or will be offensive to someone, and it gets blasted everywhere? And to your point though, about people get on there and they just all different forms of social media, and they just have this license to just say whatever the heck they want to say, and completely inappropriate ways, or madly offensive or derogatory, and again, it's something that in human nature, as you mentioned, Mike, you're standing in front of someone. I think everyone's got different levels, but your human decency. You might disagree with someone vehemently, but in front of them, you're not going to call them a bad name and say, all this bad stuff. On social media, you get the keyboard warriors that are just like blasting away on these things.
Yeah, another way to think about this is separating a person from their acts. When our kids were growing up, my wife and I used to be very careful to say, look, we don't, to our kids, we don't approve of what you did. We love you, but we don't love what you did. Right. Some people, and I've heard President of Harvard say, people are what they do. We have to attach responsibility to the act and things like that. Well, there's a reason to say that, to have accountability, back to accountability and forgiveness. But I think the first rule is respect people for the persons that they are, and their acts sometimes are misguided, and give them credit for being able to improve on a mistake.
Yeah, good stuff, Mike. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Again, deeptradeoffs.com. We'll put it in the show notes as well. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your week, and don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms, or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100+ streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.